On the agenda tonight, we're going to be taking a look at David Bowie's isolated studio vocal for Space Oddity. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, David Bowie was one of those names that popped up in the comments section over the last few videos that we've done, looking at auto-tune, but also looking at artists' vocals through a pitch monitor, as we will be doing tonight. Just before we jump into the pitch analysis, this video is probably a good addendum, if that's the right word, for the other analysis that I've done on David Bowie, or David Bowie, as we call him here in the UK. It's Bowie over in the USA, but I know that a lot of people tune in from the USA, so I say Bowie. But anyway, that previous video that I did, I didn't have this software available or the means to get it on screen for you guys to be able to look at. So a lot of the points that I make in that previous video, we can now see on screen, and I will highlight those as we get into it. This is the recording from the studio mixer, and we know that because David's having a little bit of a joke at the beginning of the take. He says about a mouse fart. I think that he might be sitting down recording this because you can hear a little bit of squeaking in the background. I think that's what he's referring to. You can also hear him flicking his cheek, making noises on the microphone, and you can hear very low in the mix the original track that he's singing along to in his headphones. So like the last analysis video that we did, we had that as a feature on that. But let's get everything up on screen and have a listen to this isolated vocal.
Little mouse fart. Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. Commencing countdown, engines on. Check ignition and may God's love be with you.
I'm just going to jump in there, and I let the track play at the beginning. I haven't taken out all of the gaps between the vocals because you can hear, if you do turn up loud, you can hear all of the breathing, the little preparation that goes into performing a vocal, such as just clearing the throat a little bit and all of these things that you won't hear on the original recording. But when you've got an isolated studio take like this, you can hear all of that humanity in there and everything that is literally like hearing his voice right in front of you as if he's just talking to you. But with the vocals so far, something actually I'm going to point out straight away at this last vocal phrase, and something that I mentioned in that previous analysis that I did on David, is his vibrato, and how he has almost this classical vibrato that doesn't sit in with standard pop singers and pop music. It's very wide, and here you can see on screen, you can see my arrow here, we've actually got the D3, which is the note that's being hit here. But look at the vibrato, the way that when David gets into it, he's actually vibratoing and not only hitting, I mean, this is so accurate pitch-wise, having the vibrato going up a semitone and down a semitone. He's absolutely nailing it, and this is a great indication of either somebody that's practiced vibrato a hell of a lot, or somebody who has a natural vibrato and always falls within the same parameters. He relaxes into that sound. So if we start thinking about this vocal and auto-tune, as we have done in the past on this channel over the last week and a half, you'll start to think and you can start to predict that Auto-Tune's going to have a problem here, because it's not only a D3 that's going to register, but also the D sharp and the D flat. So it's going to have 3 notes that it's got to try and figure out where to snap the notes to. And this is why Auto-Tune, when you apply it to a singer who has a unique vocal and a unique delivery, unique techniques that they use when they sing, it sounds so much more obvious because you're getting rid of all of that personality. I just want to draw your attention to David's pitch accuracy as well, because when you're listening to his vibrato, because it is wide, it goes either side of the note by a semitone, sometimes you might lose the fact that when he does sing straight on pitch, he is so accurate. And for reference, this pitch monitor is set up for 440 Hz and equal temperament, of course. So that's what we're looking at with the lines. Let's just have a listen to this phrase and see it in action.
Take your protein pills and put your helmet on.
So that was a good example because we're jumping between 2 notes and we've got our C and our D. And here, I mean, starting out, we're ever so slightly sharp, but the distance between our notes here, if you're analysing the distance, again, straight up to the D3s, bang on, followed by bang on, between notes. So it's not just holding one note and trying to gauge where that is. And the longer you hold a note, if you've got the song in your ear, you can start to just adjust it a little bit because you can hear, oh, I might be ever so slightly flat, and you can do it as you hold that note for a longer period of time. You can start to maybe get a little bit more accurate. Whereas here, because he's jumping from one note to the next, you can see that he's, again, dead on, dead on, dead on, dead on, and then goes a little bit flat because there might have been a little bit of vibrato in there, and then starting a little bit, probably the vibrato going over into the next phrase, back to pretty much dead on, slightly flat and dead on. So look at that last phrase as well. Just as he ends with the vibrato, it's going straight through that line. So it's going straight through the pitch of D3 in equal temperament. So really accurate vocally when he's not applying the vibrato. I know that a few people have had a problem following what's going on, but the yellow line is his voice, on the left-hand side is the pitch. So when David starts to go over an octave, again, he's got that range in this particular performance, but he had that throughout his whole career, being able to take his vocal up by over an octave, octave and a half. So his voice on the graph is going to go right off the graph because the software can't keep up with that change in pitch. But let's jump into it.
This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in the most peculiar way, and the stars look very different today, for here am I sitting in a tin can, far above the world. Planet Earth is blue and there's nothing I can do.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. Looking at David's voice and seeing it represented as pitch, I never realised how accurate he was. When he's singing a straight note, he is absolutely nailing. I mean, in that last, look at this. I mean, we're ever so slightly flat of the line, but going back just to when he holds on a note, look at that. And it doesn't look like Auto-Tune. This is the thing to point out. The Auto-Tune, when the voice is directly on the line, you don't get all of these imperfections of slightly flat, slightly sharp of the line because it's snapping it directly to the line. But this is probably the most accurate we've seen so far on these analysis videos that we've done on Auto-Tune, but also having a look at pitch in depth with the artists that we've been looking at over the last week and a half. But here, so accurate. And then when the vibrato comes in, I think this is why I wasn't aware that he was so accurate pitch-wise, because he always applied vibrato. So it means you don't get to hear a straight note, especially in isolation like we can listen to it here. You don't get an appreciation of the accuracy because of all the other instruments going on. But because of this, you can see that he was so spot on. And as we just have a little rewind back through, you can see pretty much that it's very rarely a straight line that we get because the vibrato being applied the whole time. But that application of vibrato, I mean, here you can see that he's just going to be dead on. And when that vibrato comes in, he's still just either side of the line. And it tends not to be as wide a vibrato when he's singing through a slightly faster phrase and he's got more words going on that he needs to concentrate on. Talking about the words going on, have a listen to his enunciation, the way that he makes every single word so clear, and there's no mistaking what he's singing about. It's another thing that David has about his voice that is unique. Not only that classical style vibrato, but having the clarity of everything he's saying so that you appreciate the story of the song without having to go and look up what the lyrics are. And that is sometimes the case with some songs. You might miss the meaning of it because you weren't sure of a few words, and those few words can be really important to the overall story of the song. So we're going to jump back into the vocal. We'll listen to it all the way to the end, and we then will have a listen to the auto-tuned vocal that sacrilegiously I have applied, so you guys can see what the auto-tune does with David's voice when it is applied and how it deals with those confusing three notes that all happen within that vibrato. But let's just finish off the track and the studio take from David.
Though I'm past 100,000 miles, I'm feeling very still. And I think my spaceship knows which way to go. Tell my wife I love her very much. She knows.
I love the way that David opens up on his voice in that particular phrase vocally. It really stands out on the recording and also, of course, on this isolated vocal. Just to point out the accuracy of these steps as David goes up. Again, bang on, but bang on with the natural expression within the note, not just one straight line. But let's continue.
Ground control to Major Tom, your circuit's dead. There's something wrong, can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom?
Interestingly, taking this back, you can see that David goes sharp here, but it's in the expression of saying that something's wrong. So it's a natural change in pitch that's communicated through the language, the words that he's saying. It's an automatic thing. And I've only really noticed that now during this pitch analysis, that he's so accurate beforehand, but to accentuate the fact there's something wrong, the voice changes and goes sharp. Let's listen to that again. I might take it back to the beginning of that phrase.
Ground control to Major Tom, your circuit's dead. There's something wrong, can you hear me, Major Tom?
So that first phrase, he's not saying anything's wrong, but then as soon as he says it, he goes, there's something wrong. And it's that slightly sharp of the note that he hits that's got the expression in there. If that was the same, because you can see David was so accurate pitch-wise on the next note when he hits that exact same note, which is the E4 in this case. I'll take it back so you guys can see. When he hits it that third time, here, I'm just pointing it out, he's dead on again because the lyrical content is different. Let's just take it back.
It's dead. There's something wrong. Can you hear me, Major Tom?
Because he's just saying, Major Tom. He's just saying Major Tom. There's nothing wrong, but It's fascinating, at least I find it fascinating, to see how the voice changes depending on the lyrical content. Going sharp makes it stand out because of what you're saying, not because you're trying to sing slightly sharp intentionally, but it's a natural thing. It's human emotion, it's communication. And this is what you miss out on with Auto-Tune. And I guarantee you, Auto-Tune, before we even look at it, will have flattened that note to the other two that are on the line. It will keep it all just so cut and dry, so linear, and that's the problem with Auto-Tune. But let me just resume it.
Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear, am I floating round my tin can? Far above the moon. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do.
I'm just going to jump in here, because looking at some of these waveforms, I mean, going all the way back, or just a little bit back here, I mean, we are pretty much dead on pitch here. Vibrato, either side of the note, and then coming down. Again, really close, a little bit sharp, coming down again, pretty much spot on. Vibrato descending. Again, all of the expression is in the freedom of the voice to move where it wants to emotionally.
Planet Earth is blue.
And even that, planet Earth is blue, dead on the notes. It's so impressive, but something that I've never noticed until you look at it. And this is the point of the analysis videos. You don't notice this because you're listening to the art. It's only when you do analyze it that then you get a whole different and deeper appreciation of the ability that David had. He's not looking at a graph here trying to hit notes, but that's what makes it so impressive, that he's communicating musically so accurately as well as emotionally so accurately, because you get into the story of the song, and that's what it's all about. So now to finish with, we're going to have a listen to David's voice being auto-tuned, and believe it or not, I've set the auto-tune not to 0.0 milliseconds. I think it was maybe around 60 or 70 milliseconds. So it's still taking a little bit of time to take effect on his voice. But because there are so many notes being covered by his vibrato, because it's so wide, covering 3 notes at a time, it really confuses the auto-tune and it doesn't know where to snap his voice. So fair warning, this is going to sound ridiculous, but we can compare those notes that I was just talking about where he intentionally goes sharp to see that the auto-tune gets rid of that expression. But let's have a listen.
Though I'm past 100,000 miles, I'm feeling very still.
Straight away, here's the example of the auto-tune snapping to an A3, and he's going to the A flat as well, down to the G. I say he's going. The auto-tune is going because it doesn't know which note to snap it to because of the vibrato being so wide. So there's your example of it snapping between notes, trying to figure out what's going on.
And I think my spaceship knows which way to go.
It's funny because it sounds like they've sent an android to space and he's reporting what's going on. And it'll sound like there are androids in the control room as well. But who knows in the future?
Tell my wife I love her very much. She knows.
I think the auto-tune liked that phrase because it was so straight and didn't have the vibrato on. A human voice, when it hasn't been auto-tuned, to be this tight to the line is so rare to see because there's always some kind of expression in the voice. And when we are comparing this, for example, let me actually turn that off, see if we... There we go. There's the original vocal that we can see from David. And I think the best way to describe auto-tune from the point of view of looking at waveforms is that it's making the pitch almost like a magnet, so that all of the wavering going on, it now gets drawn to the line. And you can see here that these, I mean, this is spot on. this is directly on pitch of B3, but we get these tiny variations because of the expression. But then as soon as it's auto-tuned, you lose those tiny variations so that you don't get any at all. So, and here we hit the note dead on and then a little bit flat from David, but that's the expression that comes in after he's hit the note. You then get the expression, which is slightly flat, but you don't notice that when you're listening to it. Whereas here, the note is hit initially, and then the expression, which is down here, now doesn't exist anymore. It's now the same note that you've already heard. And this is the point, that when a singer hits a note, you're not hit emotionally by the note instantaneously. It takes a little bit of time for the note to then register for you to then have an emotional reaction too. But here with auto-tune, once the singer's hit the note, the expression afterwards doesn't exist. So you just take that note emotionally as you heard it straight away, because nothing's changed. There's been no emotional impact or expression put into the note by the singer after they've hit it. So really good example here of what auto-tune does, just snapping it to the lines, and also sounding like a computer singing, because it is. But anyway, let's get back into it.
Ground control to Major Tom, your circuit's dead. There's something wrong, can you hear me, Major Tom?
And there we have it. So that line, when I said there was a little bit more expression because he went sharp, the auto-tune actually snapped it to the note above. So that shows you how badly it's dealt with the signal and the extra expression. It was only, I tell you what, we can take it away. You can see here that we're just sharp, and it might have just crossed over the threshold to being over halfway to the next note. So auto-tune has said, I can't work that out, so I'm going to snap it to the note above, which of course makes it sound ridiculous. And if you did this in the studio, you wouldn't accept that. You think that is ridiculous, and you'd maybe do a little bit of pitch correction, not auto-tune, to make sure that it goes back to where it was here. I would personally just leave this all as it is, because it is perfect to the ear. But looking at that, the expression again is totally lost, because we're not even given the opportunity to hear a slightly sharp version of that E4. We have to hear an F, which is totally different to what David intended to do. So it's taken away David's artistic expression within his singing. I don't particularly want to listen to any more of this Android version of the vocal, but we'll have a little listen just so you guys can see how it's like a magnet attracting it to the lines.
Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me?
This is the original vocal we're looking at, and you can tell instantly when you're looking at a natural vocalist because the waveforms don't lie. Let's take it away, and this is instantly attracted to the lines auto-tune.
Major Tom.
But anyway, thank you guys for requesting David Bowie to have a look at tonight. And you can check out that other video on the channel if you want to. I might link it at the end of this video if you want to see that first analysis that I did on David. I know that these analysis videos do tend to go on for a while, so I'm going to try and cut them down in terms of their overall length. So thank you guys again for the requests. Keep those coming in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!